let's talk about the Common Core Standards, otherwise known as the Ohio Learning Standards, and exactly what they are, what they're meant for, and how we can actually read them. We will be using these in your course when we do our projects. We're going to be matching the standards that we're trying to achieve with our different projects, along with the ISTE standards or the technology standards, ISTE standards, when we do our projects. So we know that we are designing our projects and our activities in order to meet a certain standard. So what are standards? If you've just recently finished high school, or you have children in school, or you remember being in school, if you've been out a while like myself, then you remember that standards apply to almost everything. It's what we want our students to know and be able to do when they finish our unit, lesson, module, course, a grade. So they're very specific ideas and outlines of what we're looking for when students complete something. Ohio has their standards separated by grade level and content area. So for students in my class in this course that believe they want to be elementary educators, and something that you told me at the beginning of the course when I asked everyone what grade level they think they want to teach and what content area, this is where it all comes in. So if you're elementary, then you have 4 sets of standards that you need to meet. And that would be science, math, English, and social studies. So no matter what, you'll have those 4 sets of standards that you'll be looking at and can pull from when you design different activities and lesson plans. If you're middle school or high school, it really depends on your content area. So some of you might want to be science teachers in high school or middle school, or English teachers in high school and middle school. In that case, then you can see that there are content areas, and when you look in these particular documents, you will be able to see that they're broken down by grade. So let's take a look a little bit about this website and how we find the standards that we're going to use, because eventually you're going to be downloading them and using them later on when we do projects. So let's take a look at 2nd grade, for example. So when we open up this document, what you'll see is a list of all the different standards that are available for 2nd grade. And you can see a list here: computer science, fine arts, science, social studies, English. So they're all listed here, but they're all listed at what we call the 10,000 foot level, which means they're very broad. And let's take a quick look at social studies, for example. And I want you to go ahead and flip through these when you're going through this module, to go to this website and take a look at these in the area that interests you. So let's take a look. There's social studies, there's a history strand, a geography strand, and we're going to talk about strands here in a minute. But if you look over here, what you'll see is historical thinking and skills. Time can be shown graphically on calendars and timelines. So if you're designing technology out of the thought process, if you're designing an activity in which you're trying to meet the standards for showing time can be graphically on calendars and timelines, then you want to make sure that your activity that you're designing actually meets that goal. It's the same thing with technology. If you're trying to infuse technology into this, then you also need to make sure that you're meeting one of the ISTE standards in order to achieve this particular goal. And we'll talk about that more as we get into projects. But for right now, I just want you to get an idea of what standards are, and the idea that we'll be kind of using these to frame how we're going to do our projects later on in the course. And don't worry, I will help you through it. We'll talk through it. I don't expect you to be a standards specialist. I don't expect that there will be a right and wrong answer for the standards that you choose. What I want you to do is think about it, start to learn how to match the standards to the activity that you're trying to do. Now, in real life, in the real world, it would actually be the other way around. You would actually start with the standard and work your way backwards on how you would want to develop an activity to do the standard. But because this is an ed tech class, you're going to be doing it a little bit backwards just so you can get the idea. So once I get an idea of what the general strands are, then I can go up here to where it says Ohio's Learning Standards for Social Studies. So what you ultimately are going to want to get to is the standards for whatever subject that you're in, and it'll take you to a different site. And if you read down through here, it'll explain a little bit about social studies. And then it also takes you to the actual learning standards. So the end game is to get to the point where you see a document that has this big Ohio, and there'll be different colors based on the content area. So you can see that this is Ohio Learning Standards for Social Studies in Ohio. So now we're going to look at this because this is our bread and butter. This is what we're going to want to do, really focus on when we start to do our activities. So there's a table of contents, and you can see all the different grades that are in here, including high school. And if I continue on down here, it'll tell you some assumptions that were made while doing it, but this is the part I really want to show you. So as you're looking at these standards in Ohio, you'll see that it starts with a very broad umbrella of information, which are strands. And for this particular content area, social studies, there are 4 strands: history, geography, government, and economics. So again, think of this as a big giant umbrella called social studies. And now it's breaking it down into 4 strands that lead into social studies. Then we break it down a little bit further into themes. So a theme is what they call a narrative of a high school course syllabus, or it could just be the focus in a more elementary level classroom. And they give a good example. People working together is a theme. So how does people working together fit in with history? How does people working together fit under geography, government, and economics? So themes are under strands. And then we just keep breaking it down into topics. So topics are just what they sound: various specific targeted areas of content within a strand. And they give, for geography, for example, a topic could be human systems. So under the strand of geography, how are people working together in human systems? And then the nitty gritty of it, the thing we're really trying to get to, is this content statement. So when in the future I ask you to tell me which standards that you're using for your activity, this is what you're going to be copying and pasting when you get to those standards. It'll be the content statements, and we'll look at them here in a second. But this is the essential knowledge that students should learn at each grade level or within each course. So let's take a look farther on down and let's see if we can get some good examples. And I will tell you that not every Common Core standard sheet looks as organized as this. The science Common Core sheets tend to be a little more difficult to look at. So let's look at this one and then you can get an idea. So again, here are the 4 strands: history, geography, government, economics. And it gives you some topics and the topic description: historical thinking and skills, spatial thinking and skills, civic participation and skills, economic decision-making and skills. So again, we're going to keep going down. And so for K through 8, here's the strand, is history. Here's some topics, and then keep going down one more. And then you eventually get to the themes. So for kindergarten, a theme under the topic of spatial thinking, places and regions, in the strand of geography. And so it just keeps going on down through here. So themes could be a child's place and time for kindergarten, families now and long ago for first grade. And you can see on and on. So I really want you to explore these and try to get a feel for how these strands and themes and topics all work until you finally get to the actual content statement. So if we look at K through 8, a theme for the strand of history under the theme of a child's place and time, the topic is historical thinking and skills, and then the content is time can be measured. Personal history can be shared through stories and pictures. And then more content statements under different pieces of the theme are listed here. So there's 4 content statements under the history strand. So again, if I asked you to include on a paper or an activity the particular standards that you are using or that you're achieving with this design or lesson or activity or project, you would want to drill down until you got to these particular statements, and then that is what you would copy and paste. So hopefully this makes sense. It's just a brief overview. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me. You can email me. We can do a virtual session if these don't make sense. And they are tricky. So I want you to understand that these are complex. Reading them is complex. And I'm not expecting you to be a standard expert right off the get-go. What I want you to do is make an honest attempt at matching your standards with your activities and the projects that we do. So good luck. Explore your standards in your content areas and continue on with the module.